and it's a 5-hour race, and there's two riders for each jet ski, and they'll ride one tank of gas, and then when they come in to do a pit stop, they change riders, and then that one does. And the one that makes the most laps in 5 hours wins. So I thought it was kind of remarkable.
So they were lapping them.
Yeah, they were lapping. In fact,
the
first 2 or 3 that you see at the end again, but only I would notice that. You know, but that they make a complete lap in 10 minutes.
So that actually allows, I think, for a larger question. This is a race that occurs once a year, and so did you? Obviously, you planned to go that day, but had you gone like the previous year to scout it, or how did you find that place in the course in which to film it? And then more generally, what was involved in like scouting and finding your place for each of the lakes?
Well, with the Salton Sea, I know it very well because it's close to where I live here, and I like that whole area. And I went there actually to film there first, and filmed at Bombay Beach when a documentary team from Germany was making a film about me, and that was the first place we went to. And there wasn't speedboats at that time, and I filmed at Bombay Beach where there's remnants of some of the buildings that have been built there, flooded. The Salton Sea is a sea that was accidentally made. There was no sea there at all. It used to be the Salton sinkhole. And in the early 1900s, I believe 1903 to 1906, the Colorado River flooded into the Salton sinkhole because of the irrigation system that was built. It was put up very quickly to farm the Imperial Valley, and it was done in a sloppy way that when heavy waters came down the Colorado River, they broke completely into this irrigation system, and it created the Salton Sea. And then it started to dry up, but because of the irrigation farming in the Imperial Valley, the lake stabilized. And then in the 1950s, a number of resorts were built around the lake, even though it's a heavily salted lake and it smells from a certain kind of flies that hang out on the shoreline. And they built all these resorts, and then they increased the amount of farming in the Imperial Valley, so the irrigation runoff almost doubled, and the lake rose 10 more feet, and it flooded a lot of the resorts that were built there. So this is why I wanted to do that lake. And when I filmed it the first time, I filmed at Bombay Beach, where there was a remnants of this flooding that flooded these resorts. So in that shot, there was some fences in the water and telephone poles, and it's kind of surreal. There's no real sense of what it is. And I kind of liked the shot, but I wasn't real happy with the light in the shot. So I was going back to the Salton Sea actually to film that shot over. And then this race was going on, and I stopped and talked to the guys that were racing and found out that it was going on for 5 hours. And that interested me more than the flooding all of a sudden, so I set up and I did that shot instead. So I had no idea that race was going. It just happened to happen the day that I went there. The original plan was to film the 13 largest lakes in the United States, but then 5 of them turned out to be in Alaska, and 3 of them are frozen year-round, so I wasn't sure that would be real interesting, and it would be hard to get to them. So then I decided to still try to film rather large lakes, but lakes that had kind of uniqueness to them. So the Salton Sea, because of the story I just told you, Crater Lake, because it was formed from a crater, Lake Powell, because it's man-made on the Colorado River, and it flooded a lot of Anasazi culture and the early Indian culture that's under that lake, so that interested me in filming that. Lake Pontchartrain, because it was near a large city, and it has the longest bridge across any lake in the U.S. It's 23 miles long, the bridge that you see. And then Okeechobee in Florida because of the swamps, and Moosehead Lake in Maine because it was in such wilderness, and Lower Red Lake because it was completely surrounded by the Chippewa Nation that doesn't allow any kind of real estate speculation, so the lake is pretty pristine. Anyway, that's kind of what you're asking.
Where's Lake Iliamna?
Hiamna is in southern Alaska, and that's the one where the snow is blowing across the lake. And it's very blue, the water looks very blue, and there's a violent sky. The wind was blowing, gusting up to about 70 miles an hour, but it wasn't that cold. I was lucky it was only like just below freezing. But I had like 2 inches of snow sticking to my back when the shot was done. It wasn't snowing, it was just blowing. And so the whole field was sticking to my back. So I had to hold the tripod down because it was blowing so hard and kind of shield the camera from the wind.
Curious how much you can go to the audience as well. Yeah, Mike.
So when you're framing up, do you have it in your mind like you're framing up more of a still image, or are you thinking about the wave movement?
This was a real simple film for me to make. I had this criteria that I would find these 13 unique lakes, and then I would frame them all in the same way, with a horizon in the middle, half sky, half water, and always, if possible, to get the front legs of the tripod into the water, so I'm always right at the edge of the shore on all the shots. And then the hard part is then to find a frame with that kind of framing and with no camera movement that would somewhat allow me to capture the uniqueness of that lake. So that's kind of how the framing went. So the lakes I knew I could shoot quite quickly, but I might have to wait for weather, and the lakes I didn't know, I spent quite at least a week driving around looking for places and then waiting for weather. So I made a couple of trips. I made a trip around the whole U.S., and then I didn't like what I did in Pontchartrain, so I went back there, and I went back to Winnebego in Wisconsin, refilmed that. And then I refilmed the first shot, Jackson Lake, because I shot it at sunset, and then I realized I'd rather have it at sunrise. And I went up to Crater Lake twice, because the first time I went there the lighting wasn't interesting. The sky was blue, and I couldn't really get the sense of what the lake was like. And then I went back there later in late October and got that beautiful sky and with the water completely still or just slight undulation. So I tried to find weather that would be interesting, give a sense of the lake also.
In the Crater Lake one, I guess, the gunshots?
Yeah,
And then, is it Okeechobee where you hear the train?
yeah.
Can you talk a little, because both of those are sounds that just, there's no visible reference
Yeah,
for them.
and both of what I would do is when I went, the other rule in this film was always to use sound from the place, because I really wanted to somewhat give the sense of that place. So what I would do is, when I first got there, I would record, and then I would do a sync shot, and then I would record after. And then I could use some of the other sound to take out extraneous noises that I didn't like. And when I was filming at Crater Lake, I was filming early in the morning, and then as I was quitting, those guys started to do target practice, which is illegal, but it's also on very kind of righteous Indian grounds, and it's more than being rude.